Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Game, Develop, Repeat. I am your host, Chris, and in today's episode, we are talking about scams, both in games and in game development. We're talking about courses, we're talking about in-game scams, we're talking about scam emails that you get, and we're going to tie in this whole idea of a scam into like game development and player motivation and like cheating in a game and that sort of thing. I've got a lot that I want to cover today. Let's just dive into it. Let's define the term scam for the sake of this conversation. Anytime that somebody is trying to get more value out of you than they deserve and is being deceptive about it, then that's a scam. Like they know for a fact that their item is worth a certain amount and they're going to make a trade for you for that amount, and then they trick you out of it, and now they keep their own item and they get all your money and they gave you a piece of crap. That's clearly a scam. But also, anytime that somebody is intentionally deceiving you as to the value of the thing they're giving you, that is still a scam. If somebody knows they've got something worth $5 and they convince you it's worth 100 and you give them 100, or you know what, you give them 80 for it, they gave you a good deal, and they know that it's worth $5, they're scamming you, right? Like that counts. Now that we're on the same page with that, when I start talking about game development courses later in this episode, I need you to remember that definition, because people are going to think, like I've seen this conversation online, like, well, they're providing value, so I can't technically call it a scam. And like, I don't know if these things are legally scams, but in my mind, it's a scam, right? It's a scam. So remember that, remember my definition when we get to that part of this podcast. But for now, let's go in on video game scams. There are some interesting scams out there. There's like, I remember the Diablo 2 days. There were the item duplication scams, which was, okay, I know a little too much about this, and I'm just gonna reveal this right now. When I used to play Diablo 2, there was a chunk of time where I was a scammer. I scammed people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There are lessons I learned from it. And you know what? Let's just talk about those right now while we're on this. I learned that it's not even that effective, for one, right? So for those of you who are looking for a shortcut, don't do it. I've learned that it's horrific. It's just awful. It's a cowardly thing to do. It hurts other people. Yes, scamming people in video games hurts them. I learned that lesson the hard way. It sucks. Don't scam people in video games. Not that any of you need to hear this, but boy, childhood me really had to learn that through practice. What a stupid... Sorry, I don't like that version of myself. I had a partner. We had a whole thing, and then my partner flipped on me and scammed me, and I was distraught. I was destroyed. I was trying to get Tal Rasha's full set in Diablo 2, right? And he was like, "Oh, let me borrow this piece," and I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course I'll let you borrow this piece, my fellow scammer," and he just kept it. Right? Like, of course he just kept it. He was a scammer. But I was like, what? You're not giving it back to me? But I worked so hard to get that. I felt terrible. All this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I was all about shortcuts when I played Diablo 2. I was always just trying to get to the top. I was always trying to get powerful or whatever. I was just like obsessed with like progress and power and items, and like if I had just played the game, I would have gotten more powerful than I did through all the weird crap that I was doing to try to get powerful. But I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was like, this is the only way that I can get to what I want. I have to do all this stupid crap. Like, I have to be awful. And then I just went down that road. And then I don't know what the deal was. Like, I would always get rushes to get anywhere in the game. I was young, too. Like, I was a little young to be playing the game, so I was, like, looking for shortcuts because I didn't really understand the mechanics and the builds and stuff. So, yeah, it was a mess. But I learned a lot from it. I actually learned a lot from cheating as well, like using cheat codes in video games as a kid, was really interesting for me because, okay, this is a tangent, but it's interesting enough that we're doing it really quickly before we get back on scams. In Warcraft 3, I used to cheat against the AI. Or no, it was like Age of Empires or Age of Mythology or something. It was pre-Warcraft 3. I would cheat against the AI, and then I would like play online or something and just get wrecked. Or against my brothers, and I would just get destroyed. And I was like, oh, I can't cheat here. Like, I'm so bad. And how am I this bad? I'm never this bad when I'm playing on my own. And the cheating made the game less fun. When I cheated in the campaign, I just didn't enjoy it. Except for the playful ones. Some of the cheats are just really funny, right? Like the equivalent of Big Head mode back on like the skating games and stuff in PlayStation. Like, except for the really funny, just enjoyable cheats, cheating for power was not any good. And so I learned at a very young age through video games that cheating sucks, that cheating is a bad idea, and that it just makes you bad at the thing. And learning that through experience was so valuable at an early age, because then for the rest of my life, I never understood why anybody cheated on anything. Whenever somebody was talking about cheating in school, I was like, what? Why? You're just going to suck later. You're just going to be terrible at this, and it's going to catch up to you. Like, I've experienced this firsthand, and it's less fun. You don't get to enjoy the experience. Why are you cheating? And yet that same kid did the scam thing. And then I learned that one too, which was like, oh, I'm hurting other people. And this is like also a version of cheating. Why did I do this? What a doofus. That might have been around the same time period. Maybe I learned those lessons at the same time, or just in retrospect looking at it. So yeah, those are my sins. Please forgive me. Or don't, I was being awful. Like I shouldn't have done that. Like, I know it seems like I'm like beating myself up over a video game item, but I really want to get this point across to you that it's not a video game item. It's somebody's hard work and enjoyment. You are robbing somebody of their pleasure within the game. You're tainting this experience that's just supposed to be an enjoyable game, right? So that's why I'm so hard on this whole topic, because I have the firsthand experience. And as one of my friends always says, we hate what we used to be, and God, I hate scammers. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of scams you can look out for within game development. All right, let's just go over to that side of things. I think we've established that scamming in games is bad. Oh, you know what? No. The motivation behind scamming. Just one quick thing about the motivation behind scamming, because this will be really valuable for actual development lessons, like game development lessons. If the player is really lost and sees a shortcut, they're going to try to take the shortcut, right? If the player's not having fun for some reason, like there's some internal thing where they're like, I'm not enjoying this, I need this to enjoy this, they're going to shortcut to whatever the thing they think they need is. So the fun in the game has to be the obvious path, I guess. All of the how do I put this? If the way to enjoy yourself, no, that's not quite it. If the way to get powerful is boring, people are still going to do it, right? People aren't going to do the most fun thing. They're going to do the thing that gets them powerful because they think it's fun to become powerful, right? That's what I think I'm getting at. They think it's fun to become powerful, but it's fun to play the game. And so you have to make the process of becoming powerful enjoyable. And if there are alternative routes in that process, they need to have their own appeal, right? I kind of like the idea of baiting somebody into a shortcut and then having that shortcut be way more difficult than the actual path, and then have the person be like, oh man, I'm so glad I took that shortcut, right? And they'll just never know, right? I don't know why, but that seems like a fun design thing to me. Or like you show them at the end, or I don't know, or they replay the game and they find out and they're like, oh my God, I shouldn't have taken the shortcut. What was I doing? That was so much harder. Anyway, let's talk about development ideas. It seems like I'm already slipping into it. We'll talk about some scams and some scam related development ideas. the first scam that a fledgling game developer will run into. We're going to tackle these in order of appearance if we manage to get to all of them. The first one that a fledgling game developer runs into is the scam course. The course that promises everything and really does not deliver, okay? And it has some guaranteed return policy, and then you look in the fine print and it's like, if you finish this percentage of the course and blah, 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 blah. It's like by the time you finish that, if you have a full-time job, you're past the return window. It's all that kind of stuff, right? It's one of those. They're almost always on sale. They almost always have like a limited amount of slots or whatever, something like that. Yeah, there's high pressure incentives, and then there's good courses. Before I go off about the bad courses, let's mention the good courses, because I am going to go off about the bad courses. I have a background in education, and this is very much a pet peeve for me. So apologies, but it's gonna get a little intense. The good courses, though, because I like to focus on the positive, generally speaking. The good courses are courses that are going to teach you something specific. If a course is going to teach you something specific, great. If it's a more broad overview, it addresses that and it does not promise the world. It tells you, hey, we're going to teach you what you need to know to make your first game. And they're not talking first commercial game. They're talking your first game. Maybe it is commercial, maybe it's not, right? But they're not promising you the world. They're not promising you six figures. They're not saying you're going to go full time. They're not telling you to quit your day job. They're just saying, here's a skill that I can teach you. Here's a foundation that I can provide for you. You need to understand this engine. We're going to help you understand the engine. You need to understand C#. Here's how we get started on that. You need to learn a little bit about this. We can teach you a little bit about this. They are skill focused, not outcome focused. If something is promising you a specific outcome, it starts to get a little sketchier. If something is promising you an outcome that sounds amazing, it's probably a scam course by my definition. This is the part where I'm going to get a little bit aggro. I'm going to get a little bit passionate, let's say. I might raise my voice. It might be intense. For those of you who've been listening for a while, you might know that I used to be a music teacher. I taught privately. I have a degree in music education, okay? I have taught students to play their very first note on an instrument many times. There are these things called instrument tryout nights where these kids come up and they try the instrument, and you tell them a few things, you give them a few silly instructions, you get them excited about it, and they make their first sound and they look surprised and they look amazed and they look so excited, and you see the joy in their eyes. You see this moment where they see the potential and they're having fun and they're going, oh my God, I just made a noise. I didn't even know this could do this. I remember when I made my first sound on a trombone. It was crazy. I was like, that can happen? How did my lips make that sound? I just like, what? It's magic. And it wasn't even a good sound. I didn't even make a good sound, but it was magic. I wanted to go back around and play it again. It's so cool. Okay? That first moment, that beautiful, joyous moment of learning a skill for the first time, especially a skill that can feel like magic. Music can feel like magic, and game development can feel like magic. And when your first experience in game development is somebody saying, hey, let's try this out. Let's play with this. Let's see what happens. What if you make this happen next? What if you make that sprite do this? What if you change the code in this way? Then what happens, right? If that first experience is, let's experiment, let's figure it out, let's go on this journey together and just see what we can make. That's beautiful. And that is inspiring, and that makes the student want to explore. That makes the student want to find out what they can do, and they are ready to keep exploring for years. They are going, I want to see what I can do. That little fire can be fed properly, and you will make the coolest stuff you have ever made in your life, and you will never regret that first moment that you picked up the instrument or you sat down at the keyboard and started using that engine. It's so good. All right? And if your first experience with something as magical and phenomenal as music or game development or whatever else, if your first experience with this beautiful creative act is, man, in 6 months, maybe we can make you $100,000. Don't you want to work towards that? It's just not inspiring. It's so crushing. It's not good. And I know that people are motivated differently. And I know there's extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation and all this stuff. First off, intrinsic motivation is more valuable for you as a student. It's just going to be better for you. I'm not going to go in on the whole thing. You want intrinsic motivation. If your whole thing is, hey, I'm going to make you money, I'm going to make you successful, you're going to reach this goal in this amount of time, it's not a good teaching environment. And I know that I'm holding these people to a high standard, but you know what? They should be held to a high standard because they're pretending to be professionals and they're saying that they're going to teach you these things and they're saying that they're going to give you what you need to succeed, and they can't provide it, and they're lying to you and saying that they can, and it drives me crazy. Now, if somebody just says, I'm going to teach you this skill, you want to learn about this skill, here's how you learn this skill. Beautiful. That's great. You're meeting somebody who's curious and you're saying, I can help you out with your curiosity. Here's the information that you need. You can keep exploring what you were wanting to explore. Perfect, beautiful, phenomenal, love it. Put those resources out there for them. Make them cheap. Don't do this 90% discount thing that everybody does. It drives me crazy. I can't stand it. But anyway, put those resources out there. It's phenomenal. But if you are promising somebody that you're going to change the rest of their life, that's not it. That's just not it. It is a corruption of something that I love. Okay? And I recognize that it's somewhat idealistic for me to want everybody to have this experience of exploring creation in this incredible, enjoyable way. But that's what I want. I don't want it to be this horrific chasing of money. Okay? That's not why we're here. That's not what it's about. And if the courses that you're following are about that, just those courses are a trap. This whole thing of you're going to get rich. You're going to be rich if you're an indie game developer. No, you're not. We know that. Some people will. Sure. It's possible to make a living and some people will get crazy rich. But if you're doing it for the money, you're not going to do it. It's not it. I think it's such an obscene motivation, and I get extra frustrated because I know that it's a trap that I have been prone to in the past too. It's another one of those things where I'm like, oh, I want my life to be this way and this will be the path to it. I'll be able to focus on creativity if I can make money off of it. So maybe what I really need is the money. No, the thing I love about it is the creativity. And that's why that scam bothers me so much. It distracts you from the creativity. It tells you that the reason you should be pursuing game dev is because of money. Forget your curiosity. We don't need to worry about your curiosity. I'm going to promise you money. So forget your passion, forget your drive, forget your interest, forget all these things that drive you and make you love what you're doing, which actually lead to success, by the way, I would assume, because then you're going to continue working on it. If you love it, you're going to keep doing it. I'm getting too fiery, but it makes me so, it's a mixture of angry and upset. It's so frustrating to me because the other part of this is these people's hearts are probably in the right place. They're probably like, oh, this is how we get people to start taking the first steps. And maybe it works sometimes, you know? Hands in the air. I don't know everything. Fine. Obviously, right? I'm some guy with an opinion just like everybody else. But God, it looks so bad to me. And that's why I consider it a scam. It's not because they're getting $20 out of you and providing you poor value. It's because they're getting $20 out of you and distracting you from your real passion. That's the real robbery there. They're using your passion to make them $20. If this was a Path of Exile scam, they're like, give me your passion and I will give you this career. And you're like, you know what? I'll make that trade. And then they swap the career out for, I don't know, just like some vague information, and it still looks like the career. I'm done. That's all I have on that scam. That's that. I'm going to cool down for a second and then start talking about the next one. Okay, there's a couple more scams. One is just like weird, useless, demotivational YouTube content, right? There's just like a lot of stuff that's just like, it just wastes your time when you should be working on whatever you're actually working on. And like, I don't know, it's not really harmful. It just, they're stealing your time and attention for advertising dollars and pretending to provide value when really they're just like having you watch their videos. And sometimes they do provide value. Some of them are really great. Some of them are really terrible. I don't know, filter it. Notice your behavior after you listen to them or watch them, right? If you listen to something and you walk away from it and go, man, I don't want to develop, I'm doomed. Don't watch that. If you listen to something, you go, wow, I really want to develop. That seems great. Then listen to that. And I don't have a hard line for this. I hope that I fit into the second category. I hope that you listen to this podcast and go, that's great. That gives me some ideas. That gives me some inspiration. I want to get involved in some communities. I want to get going. I want to get moving. I want to explore the things that I love, right? That's what we're aiming for. And I think anything that's pulling you away from that, it's not really a scam. It's just a thing to watch out for. You know, it's just it's not great, basically, right? Then you're going to have, depending on how much you're advertising your game and putting stuff out there, there are like people that will just reach out to you with really bad offers, right? There are people that are going to be like, hey, publishing deal thing. I didn't run into this because I'm terrible and didn't advertise my game much at all before releasing it other than this podcast. But you'll get like publishing deal things, and you'll just get people who claim to be something that they're not. And I think they're either just trying to start their business and have no idea what they're doing, or they're just an outright like fraud, right? And it's hard to tell from a distance, but either way, you probably don't want to get involved, you know? So there's that. And then there's probably legit ones. I didn't have to deal with that. I don't want to work with a publisher anyway at this point. So there you go. It's not something I'm like pursuing for my next project either. I want to keep things going on my own as much as I can. So that's one. And then once you release a game, you get these scams that are just game key scams. People just trying to get a bunch of keys from you so they can resell them elsewhere. You'll get sob stories. You'll get streamers that say they need X number of keys, and I can't use. There's always some reason they can't use Steam Connect, Curator Connect. They're always like, those expire after this time, and we may not be able to get to it. So please only send keys in the mail or in the email. And they always have broken English, which is like fine, but every single one of them has broken English, and in the same exact way. I'm pretty sure this is one person. I'm pretty sure this is like one or two people sending different versions of the same email so they can gather a bunch of keys and send them out. The thing that got me about this is like my game was up for what, like on launch it was like 70 something cents because it was like 10% off. It's a $1 game, and I got all these emails that are like, hey, can I get a free copy of your game so I can like do whatever, right? In like horrific broken English and with a sob story. And I'm like, it's $1. You don't need to send me a sob story. Just ask for a copy, right? Just say, hey, I saw your game. Here's my stream. I have 20 viewers, but can you send me a copy anyway? Because like I want to play it and whatever. I have a stream. I got 20 viewers. I'd be like, yeah, sure. You got 20 viewers. Instead, it's somebody with they link to some Twitch profile that hasn't been active for forever. Their email has a spelling that looks like the same spelling as the Twitch profile, but is actually different. It's bizarre. It's just bizarre. I don't like it. It's really annoying. So yeah, if people are asking for keys, like Steam Curator Connect or nothing, and like one key, this maybe two. I had one person who reached out and was like, hey, I want to try out your game. And I was like, they were like, hey, if you could send 1 or 2 keys via Curator Connect or actual key, if that's what you want, either way is fine. We're like just starting out on a review thing. I looked at their channel. They actually give negative reviews sometimes, which is really rare on a Steam Curator thing. And I was like, well, that's a good sign. I sent them a couple keys, through Curator Connect, and it worked out. They ended up reviewing the game. Great. Cool. That kind of stuff, I don't care if they're a tiny, tiny thing. That's fine. But if they just so many like weird emails, man. Like, why am I getting how did you even hear about my game? Right? And it's the instant that my game got listed, it was only the email that was connected to the game. That's the other thing. You want a separate email address for all your game dev stuff because people just farm those email addresses. It's crazy. Separate email address, definitely, right? And then I use that to manage notifications and stuff too. So like just have a separate email address. Here's an annoying one. This is not even a scam. This is just one of those things to keep an eye out for. And I say this as a composer who wanted to work in games for a while. I did a bunch of compositions. I made a whole game composition portfolio, which has served me well because now I'm just making compositions for my own games. But I say this as somebody who briefly wanted to be a game composer. If you put out any kind of art for your game, if you put out anything about your game on the internet, on like Reddit or anything where somebody can message you, you're just going to get messages from composers. There's just going to be people who are like, hey, do you need music for your game? They're everywhere. It's insane. It's a plague. There's a plague of composers. Every time you see a sound design position somewhere, like a sound design job posting, they're always like, we are not interested in composers. Do not apply if you are a composer. Only sound designers. This is a sound design role with absolutely no composition involved. Do not send us your composition portfolio. And they still get composers applying to it, right? They're everywhere. I don't know why there are so many alleged video game composers, right? It's wild. That's one of the reasons I stopped doing that. I never even like started cold messaging people on that stuff because I hate cold messaging. I don't like doing it. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like bothering people, you know? Man, I think those are them. I think those are the scams. Oh man, now I've got to touch on development stuff too. This is going to go a little long. So, I think I already talked about cheating and like the shortcut stuff a little bit and how that ties in with this and like okay, let's reframe for a second because we're a little bit all over the place. Or at least I am. We're done talking about the individual scams. Now we're going to talk about how we can apply the idea of a scam to a game development, like a game's development. There are fun things you can do, obviously. You can put a little scam artist in your game. Famous example of this for me was the thief in Final Fantasy VII, and I'm ashamed of myself for forgetting her name right now. Yuffie in 7, like stealing all your materia, excuse me. Apparently I can't speak, and then like putting it back in the wrong order and all that stuff. That was great. There's stuff like that. You can have little scam characters, of course, which is fun. I think you as the developer can kind of like playfully scam your player. Does that make sense? I think I alluded to this earlier where it's like maybe you make a path that looks like a shortcut but is actually way harder, right? Maybe you make, don't do this too much because it would be really frustrating, but you make like an item that seems like it's going to be really useful and then at some point it just pays off as a joke, right? Stuff like that. Little playful, like kind of like allusions to scamming. I think there's stuff like that. And then there's just general game design principles of like, make sure that your game is not a game that the player wants to shortcut their way through, you know? Make sure that the actual experience they're having is enjoyable enough that they're not like, how do I skip this, right? Like, don't put that puzzle section in an action game, you know? Because sometimes you don't, like your players, some of them aren't going to like it. Or make it easy or make it skippable or whatever, right? At least make it good. I don't like the puzzle sections. I'm not a puzzle guy, which is weird because you would think making games, like anybody who likes coding would like puzzles. I like coding and I like some kind of puzzles. I just don't like video game puzzles because it feels like I'm trying to read somebody's mind. And it's really annoying because it's like, oh, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Those are some good puzzles because I don't have to do any mind reading, you know? That's beautiful. That's top-notch stuff. Anyway, that's as much as I can apply it to design at the moment, right? Oh, and you know what? With that whole talk about education, try to give your players those moments where they get deeply curious and fascinated and feel like something magical is going on, right? Try to give them that moment where they're like, whoa, how did that just happen? That's amazing. These unexpected, cool moments where they do something that they are amazed by, right? I think that's great. Or just the world does something that shocks them. I think that's beautiful. See all these nice things we can take away from my absolute livid, fiery hatred of scams and just poor quality courses, depending on how you want to frame it. Okay, let's talk about my own game development progress. I meant to cover this last week, and I did not. We're going to be quick, though. Even though we're covering 2 weeks, we're going to be quick. I have managed to do 40 hours a week for the last 3 weeks. I did manage to keep it up. I've had to reschedule time and do a lot of work on the weekends and that sort of thing because there's been a ton of snow and I've been shoveling and my schedule's all weird right now. But I pulled it off. It's been good. I've gotten a lot done on the coding side of things. And then I started working on story. I actually got a lot done on story. I've got some really cool story ideas. I want my next game to be much more narrative driven. Excuse me if my voice is starting to sound odd. My throat is getting pretty tired at the moment. And I've started working on art now. Today and yesterday, I started working on the art side of things more. That's a big sticking point for me. I find art a bit demotivating. I haven't had that magical moment of, oh, I can do this. This is so cool. I haven't had that moment in a while, at least, of going, oh, wow, I really love this. I'm interested in it, but it still feels very out of reach. I think I'm just comparing to other people too much, and I think I just need to keep patiently working at it and learning those fundamental things, and I'll get there, you know? I think sometimes some of these skills are just, this week was a week where some days I just have to sit down and say, okay, well, we're just grinding. It's not going to be as productive as last week. Because I had a phenomenal week the other week that I finished 8 or 9 drafts, gameplay drafts of different mini games. Phenomenal stuff. Felt really good. I was really proud of myself. I learned Godot. It was a great week and a half. And then I kind of lost sight of the plan a little bit. And after the first week, some of the excitement dies down, and then you're like, okay, now we need to get into a steady flow. So I'm transitioning into that steady flow. That's where I'm at. That's where my game development is at. Where's your game development at? Can you share that with me? I would, about my passion for teaching now. I've revealed that. I would like to hear what people in the community are up to. And I'm getting that. Some people are sharing, and it's beautiful. And I'm excited for more of it. So whenever you're making something cool, tell me about it. Whenever you're up to, you can join the Discord and post screenshots and stuff. You can email me at anxiousbuddhagames@gmail.com. Let me know what you're up to. I want to hear about it. I may not be hyper responsive because I tend to get just overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that I want to do, but I definitely want to hear about it. Okay, I've only got a couple questions that I wrote down for this week. A couple questions I came up with. First one, what mechanics in your game will your player want to shortcut? I'm feeling a little concerned that my player might want to shortcut the text in my game. The next text I'm doing is the next game I'm doing is very story based in a way. I think the narrative is what drives it conceptually. It's a bunch of mini games tied together by a narrative, basically. And I'm worried that people will want to shortcut the narrative, but I don't know. I kind of think that might just be a marketing issue of making sure that people know what kind of game it is, or an issue of making sure that it's all compelling enough, and that if somebody doesn't want to read, they have an audio version they can listen to instead. And if the text isn't very attractive, make sure that the text is easy to read and doesn't hurt your eyes and is friendly for people who have dyslexia and all that good stuff. That's That's a lot to manage, isn't it? Whatever. Game development's a lot to manage. We can do it. Next question. How can you surprise your player? Just little pleasant surprises. I like a good little Easter egg. I like a little touch of humor here or there. Put a lot of stuff throughout the game that somebody doesn't like. A few people catch it and they love it, and everybody else just flies right past it. Doing things where the player is so used to one thing happening in games and then just making something different happen than they expect is nice. Like, oh, this is going to kill me, and then instead it does a cool thing. Or, oh, it's going to keep me from dying, and instead you die. That kind of thing. I don't know how I'm going to apply that to my game, but those are my answers. How can you surprise your player in your game? And now we've got our tip for this week, and this tip is related to scamming. One of the reasons that people scam is because they're looking for a shortcut, and they don't want to take the time to get there. Right? One of the motivations behind scamming is, well, this is easier and it's not really hurting anybody. But then in the long run, it's a shortcut. It's kind of like cheating in a game and not learning the skill, right? So the tip for this week is to notice when a shortcut is preventing you from learning a skill. And I think we all do this in some little way somewhere. You know, I think it's hidden away throughout our lives and throughout our game development, whatever. Some shortcuts are good, but if you've been using it forever and then there's some issue that keeps popping up around it, is that shortcut actually causing a problem? It's good to track down the ones that are causing a problem, because sometimes they hide amongst all the other totally normal, totally fine, innocent shortcuts, right? Sometimes you've got one in there that is preventing you from learning something. Or maybe you need most of them and they are all preventing you from something, but maybe one of them is something you're ready to learn and you go, okay, it's time to get rid of that shortcut. Time to learn that thing. And then a challenge for myself this week is just to work on pixel art each day and to be patient and consistent, because right now I don't really want to work on pixel art that much. It's kind of bothering me, but I want to do it. It's the next thing I want to do. Like, it is the next thing I want to do. But, like, I have that resistance inside of me that's like, really? Are we going to sit down and do this? Yeah, we are. That's what we're doing this week. We're sitting down, we're working on pixel art. It doesn't have to be the whole time. It's not the whole 40 hours. Not necessarily. But I do have to do it a little bit every day. That's what I'm thinking for my challenge this week. That's it. That's everything I have for you. Oh boy, that was an intense one, wasn't it? Thank you for sticking with me through some of that fire and fury in the middle there, and passion. I hope that this was an enjoyable episode for you, and I hope that you learned something from it or felt motivated by it or something. And I look forward to seeing you, talking to you in the next one, and hearing about your projects. If you're working on anything cool, hit me up. That's everything I got for you. I will see you in the next one. Get out there, make some stuff, and for the love of God, have fun with it. Just enjoy yourself. All right, bye-bye.